So first off, welcome to EduTech 2020. Even though this is a virtual experience, I do hope that some of the things that I share today will give you some ideas for your own school. So my name's Ed. I'm the Learning Technologies Integrator here at St Michael's Grammar School. We're a K-12 independent school located in St Kilda, Melbourne. So my main roles within the school consists of supporting students in the classroom, a lot of curriculum design, STEM support, and I do a lot of R&D development. So one of the key projects that I have led here has been the integration of AR and VR within the school's curriculum. So how did we get started? Well, in this presentation, I'm going to give you a condensed timeline of kind of where we started and where we're going with this technology. So first off, we'll talk about Google Cardboard curriculum, the HTC Vive research and development project, VR curriculum design, the virtual reality PCA grant, performing using virtual reality, AR in the classroom, and then kind of what's next. So we first started using Google Expeditions in 2016 as part of the Year 7 Ancient Chinese Civilization unit. Now the aim of this was to actually get students to have a really clear understanding of what they were going to do in this unit of work. So whenever you're looking to integrate and use AR or VR within a curriculum, you need to have a clear kind of aim of what you actually want to achieve, and more importantly, how user-friendly is this technology for staff and students to use within the classroom. So the aim of this expedition was to get students thinking about how the topography of China influenced the development of ancient Chinese civilizations. Now you see here, we've got the class up the top left-hand side, then we've got the lead teacher too. So as a lead teacher, it's slightly different to as a student. So down the bottom here, you'll see that you've got the teacher view where you have a whole bunch of different questions. So when you're going through these scenes, as most of you might already know, is that the student can then, so the teacher can then read out questions to the students. And probably Google Expeditions is probably the easiest way to actually start your kind of VR journey. And for those who are interested in buying a couple of cheap headsets, you can buy them from eBay. We purchased a whole bunch of Knox cardboard for $10, and we've still got them, so they're really durable for many years. In 2017, the Director of Learning Technologies and the former IT manager put in a proposal to the SLT to purchase a HTC Vive and a VR computer. So once it was approved, we really needed to figure out a way of how we can actually best measure and use VR within the curriculum. So fortunately enough, within my role, I work with a lot of talented students across K-12 who have a real interest in using new technologies. So knowing that, I chose a couple of those students, and they were able to actually support us when actually using this technology within the classroom. So one of these students was Monique Lansell, who's pictured below. So Monique is a very talented artist who actually showed a real interest in actually using VR in her class. So for those who haven't actually used a VR setup before, this is what it normally looks like. So you'll have the VR computer, and then you'll have two light boxes. Now these are normally set up to actually calibrate the system itself. So having played around with it, she decided that she wanted to become a kind of a VR mentor. So I thought, why not use her for other projects that I had planned? So let's have a quick look at the first artwork that Monique made in that session. So we first used VR with our Year 1 Lit and Research students. So the task was that the classroom teacher chose a scene from the book, and the students then had to recreate that scene. So originally the idea was to just use a piece of paper, but I thought, why not actually use VR? Because I thought it'd be a great opportunity to actually showcase some of the things that they could actually do. So let's have a quick look at that video.
So let's go, shall we? They all climbed up the topmost branch to the great white cloud. The ladder led through the hole as usual to the land above. One by one they climbed it and stood in the strange country above the magic cloud. They were in the land of take what you want and topsy-turvy.
So there were three main steps when it came to actually designing this task. So the first step was the class introduction. So we had the students in the atrium, which is our largest space. We had the classroom teacher learning about VR for the first time. We had me, and then we had the lit and research teacher. So during this session, we decided that we're going to break it up into two halves. So the first half would be the lit and research teacher explaining the task to them, and then me coming in with a real basic overview of kind of what VR was. Second step, training engagement. So this is the first time that students had the opportunity to actually experience VR. So during this step, I decided that I'd bring Monique back in and actually help the students learn about VR, because I think it's really important that we encourage other students to actually help students learn about technology. So that worked really well for this task. Step 3, planning in VR. So after the training engagement component, students then went back into their class and started working on a plan. So there were two plans. This is the group plan, but they also worked in smaller groups in terms of creating their scene from the book. And the final step, obviously, is the creation. So when students are creating, it's really important that this is really visible to the whole class. So obviously in VR, the only person that can really see it is the person with the goggles on. So every time we went through the creation process, we made sure that it was actually up on the atrium so other students could see what was being created. Now, during this stage, we also had set roles. So we had the student leader, who was also creating, and then we had the student spotter, who was then supporting the student leader to make sure that the person didn't trip on the wires or anything like that. So after creating the virtual world, we decided that we wanted students to actually do a quick reflection on what they had created. So these are just two screenshots that I've put in. Now these are some of the responses from the students. I thought some of you might be interested in having a read of these. Now, we found that after VR, students were a lot more engaged when they actually went back into rewatching the videos that they made, because it's really important that you link whatever they're creating to whatever they're studying, because it's quite easy for VR to become this kind of real just enjoyment tool. But having a link between VR and the curriculum is really important to make sure that students actually really understand what they're meant to be achieving through the task. So in the junior years, we run TL units, which normally run for 6 weeks. So during term 3, the year 2s were doing this unit called Mini Melbourne, which focuses on the form, function, and structure of buildings. So one year, the classroom teacher came to me and said that they wanted to actually redesign the way that it was delivered. So previously, students would go on excursion to the Eureka Sky Deck, spend time in the classroom researching about their buildings, and then they would actually recreate that building using cardboard for a family and friends open day. So I thought, why not try and really use VR and see what we could achieve in this unit of work. So this is kind of what it looked like when I incorporated VR into the curriculum. So we first started off with Google Earth, so the research, Google Blocks, the creation, and then the documentation of the actual excursion and the process, viewing VR, creating the Mini Melbourne in cardboard, and then the Mini Melbourne Family and Friends Day. By using Google Expeditions, it allowed students to see their building in a whole new different way. So as you can see here, we're back in the atrium. So we've got the lead teacher walking the students through the different parts of Melbourne. We've got the student leader with the Vive headset on. We've got the student spotter making sure that the other student doesn't get caught up in the cables. And then we have the support teacher here. So the role of the support teacher here is to actually take notes throughout the virtual tour. So on the left-hand side here, we've got some of the questions that the lead teacher was asking throughout the expedition. So to document the learning process, I wanted to try something different. So I wanted to actually create like a mini virtual tour. So to actually do this, I used a program called Tour Creator, which you can just use through the web. So the first step was to obviously capture the lit and research class. So you can see here that I've got the Ricoh 360 camera set up. And then I wanted to capture them at the Eureka Sky Deck here. So using a camera, just a normal camera, took a couple of photos of them there. And then the final step was actually then embedding all those images into Tour Creator. And this is what you come up with here. So you see with the photo, and then I've got the 360 photo here with a descriptor. So there were three main steps when it came to creating Mini Melbourne in VR. So the first step was the research. So you see here, this is me in the classroom working with students in small groups. And then the bottom photo is of them actually in the VR space, kind of sketching out what they actually wanted to create in VR here. Step two, the creation. So this happened over probably 4 or 5 weeks, where students would work with me in the spare Year 2 classroom and actually start to actually design their own part of Melbourne. And that's them also there too in the VR space. And the final step was showcasing here. So the top photo is of the actual artwork, and the final step here is the actual showcasing the work in the showcase. So we had 3 stations set up for the showcase. The first one was the Mini Melbourne Gallery. So this is where students would showcase the buildings that they had created out of cardboard. So the Shrine of Remembrance, MCG. And then we also had the VR showcase. So this is where the parents were able to see what the students had created using Google Blocks. And the final one was the group workstation. So this is where all the research kind of went throughout the whole TL unit itself. So the research poster, then we had the merge cube to showcase the work that students had created using Google Blocks again. So we've also used virtual reality within psychology. So what I want to do now is run you through 2 different pracs that we ran last year. So the first prac was based around Richie's planking experience, where students had to walk across a virtual plank that we set up in the atrium. So what we did is we actually measured their physical arousal before and after. So this included like their heart rate as well as their sweat. So the research hypothesis was that the male students would experience higher levels of arousal than female students. Let's have a quick look at that video.
I played that game.
Jump right in.
My heart rate would be when you step out, your heart will down first. So we get it. It's actually really scary. Oh my god.
I played that game.
Jump right in.
The second prac was based around keep talking and nobody explodes. So this is another VR app where three people have to read out set instructions to a person to actually defuse the bomb here. So we use this to actually evaluate and see how people worked within a team. So let's have a quick look at that video.
Wait, so click it at any time and then just release it 5.
Yeah, click at any time, release whenever there's a 5 that means you go to the planet, right?
5 in right? That wasn't fair.
Wait, is it yellow? The button's yellow?
Yeah.
Wait, why don't we just hold it in?
After the growth of VR within the school curriculum, we decided that we needed to expand our current capabilities for future projects. So at the time, the PCA were offering grants for various projects. So the deputy head and myself decided that we'd put through a proposal for a VR space worth about $7,000. And this is what it looked like. So from very early on, we knew that we wanted students to actually lead this project. So we had a couple of keen Year 8 students that really liked building and sourcing computer parts. So we ended up actually giving the students a budget of roughly $5,000 and actually went away and actually sourced and built the computer here, as you can see. And I've also included some of the specs for those who might want to build something similar. Now, the second part of this was actually buying the Vive Pro headset. So you see here, this is a wireless option. So we've got the adapter, which is then reading across to the Vive wireless headset itself. And then up here you'll see we've got the light box for the Vive, which is obviously setting the room scale. And then we've got a couple of other photos here too. So I'm now going to give you a quick snapshot of some of the VR projects that we've done in visual arts. So the first project that I want to talk about is a Year 4 Animal Pottery Comes to Life project. So having made pottery in class, we wanted them to actually create a virtual world for the animals. So the first step was obviously scanning it. So I came across this app called QClone, which allows you to scan objects into an STL file. So obviously we've got the iPad set up here, we've got the pottery in place, and then we've got the mat too. So once it's all set up, you need to actually then rotate your iPad around the object, and then it will then create an STL file, and then you can then import it into Tilt Brush or any other app that you're using. Now the second way of doing it is actually using an Xbox One Connect, which is a little bit less accurate, but it will still do the trick if you can't get the QClone to work. So obviously you've got the scanner there, you've got the pottery down there, and then you can use 3D scan in Microsoft, and then that will then create an STL file too. So the creation. So once again, we're in the atrium doing this. So we've got some students actually working on their sketches, and then we've got other students actually in the VR space completing their artwork. Obviously one is the leader, then you've got the spotter there too. And then the final step is the creation. So we just created a short video and uploaded that onto our Schoolbox LMS. So the second project that I want to talk about is the Year 3 mini garden project. So we set a task for students to actually go home and think about how they wanted to create their own virtual garden. So you'll see here, this is the first class where students are actually in the VR space sketching out their design. So you see here, step 2, the creation process. So now because we've got this wireless option, students don't need to spend the whole time holding the cord, so it gives them more time to actually work on their sketches. And the final is showcasing students' work. So the best thing about Google Blocks is that you can actually import photos. So what I did is I actually imported the learning process throughout this project, which is kind of quite neat. So there's 2 other art projects that I've worked on over the last couple of years. So please feel free to go back and actually watch these when you've got time. Performing in virtual reality. So during speech night in 2018 down at Hamer Hall, we decided that we wanted to showcase VR to the whole school. So during the opening of speech night, we're fortunate to actually have Monique Lanzel and Tristan Buste open up speech night. And we're apparently the first school to actually try VR within the space. So you see here, we've got the VR computer set up, the Vive, the cello, the screen playback. And the most neat thing about this whole setup is that we actually had audio feeding back into Monique's artwork. So whenever she moved, we'd actually capture the movement on the screen. I've attached the video here for those who might want to see it too. So the last thing I want to talk about is AR in the classroom. So for most of our AR projects, we use CoSpaces. So the first project I want to talk about is a Year 6 wider reading book review task, where students used CoSpaces and merge cubes to create a book review. So
for my book review, I chose Ryan Nutella Gamara, and I'm first going to tell you about her books. She's made various books, and most of them were about her life, because she actually started writing about her life when she started writing in a journal when she was about the age of 10. And most of her books and online.
If you want to read more about it, please click on the QR code. I've attached the article there. Another project that we've done previously is a Year 5 Grow Zone Day, where students actually had to redesign parts of the school to make it more energy efficient. So you see here, we attached a drone to a 360 camera, and we then took photos of the school, and then we imported those photos into CoSpaces, and you can see here we've got the 360 photos, and then we've got the objects here too. What's next? Well, we're looking at further curriculum design for AR in the senior years. We're definitely looking at also bringing in a game design unit for VR. But honestly, I don't know exactly what's going to look like next year, considering everything that's going on this year. So I hope some of the ideas that I share with you today will give you some ideas for your own school. If you've got any questions, please feel free to contact me. It's extremely hard to try and present this virtually because obviously it's VR, but please, once again, please contact me if you've got any questions about anything.